Greetings and welcome to the Cell Guru Show, and today we've got a theme for you: sugar and spice. Now let me see if any of you can figure out why I'm saying sugar and spice, and then I tell you that the two main phones we are reviewing are these Micromax In Note 1 and 1B. Why sugar and spice? Think sugar as in chini. Think about the campaign, think about what all they did. We'll talk a lot about these two phones. We'll talk about that big question. Without that negative campaign that Micromax came out with, Genie Come and all of this, would these phones have stood on their own? Would they have got the kind of hype that they got at that time? Is that a good strategy for a brand that is trying to kind of reinvent themselves? And we'll of course talk about the two phones and the most important part about these two phones: with the current competition in these two price categories, where do they stand? Then we'll move on to the Samsung F41, another new phone from Samsung, another new series from Samsung. We'll take a look if this one has anything, really something very special. Then we'll move on to something that I think is one of the most critical things when we take a buying decision on a phone. Think about all the things that you think about and tick mark before you take a phone. One of the biggest ones is the RAM and the storage. But have you ever thought, is there a difference in the total RAM? Is it just a number, or are there different kind of RAMs and storages available? And what you should look for is a big story we have today. That and a whole lot more happening on the Cell Guru Show. All right, let's move to our top story. This is an interesting and very important story because it's to do with multiple things. Number one, it's to do with Micromax. At one time, it was called the number one brand. I mean, some people say it was, some people say it wasn't, but it was right there at the top, the number one brand in the country in terms of phone sales. Well, more or less absolutely and totally wiped out. Now they're coming back, and they're coming back because there's been this entire surge and current of nationalism, be Indian, buy Indian, and all of that. And they came in with a very, very negative campaign, a Chini Come kind of a campaign, which is, reduce the Chinese brands in India. Got a lot of publicity for it, but also got severely criticized. I spoke with Rahul Sharma, the main person behind Micromax, and he did say that it seemed like that was a bit of a mistake because he kept talking about, Rajiv, that was the past, let's look into the future. He did talk about how these phones are coming in, first two phones, big portfolio coming in later. But today we're going to do something very interesting on the show. We're going to actually review these two phones, obviously, but we're going to review them with one caveat, and that is we will not look at this being a Micromax phone or any other. We'll just say these two phones, if they were coming from any other brand also, it doesn't matter. The nationalism card thrown out, the entire Chini Come card thrown out. If you were to buy a phone purely based on specs, price, value for money, the whole ratio of hardware to software, are these phones actually good?
Micromax is back, and how? The Indian smartphone manufacturer is making a comeback with two new phones in the affordable Android phone space. Micromax wants to differentiate itself through build quality as well as a clean build of Android, but is that enough to stand out in a highly crowded category? Let's find out. First up, the Micromax In 1B. The company's entry-level smartphone gets the basics right. The design looks great with a large 6.52-inch display that packs an HD Plus resolution and a notch at the top. Standout features include a USB-C port, which is not too common at this price point, as well as a dedicated Google Assistant shortcut key. The construction of the phone is unibody plastic, and Micromax has opted for a matte gradient finish at the back. We did the Phone 4. There's also a fingerprint reader at the back of the phone that is quick to unlock the device. Powering the phone is a MediaTek Helio G35 processor that is paired with 4GB of RAM, the 64GB of storage. The MediaTek processor holds up just great in day-to-day use and even makes it better for multitasking. Web browsing, texting and social media use was not an issue at all, as the Helio G35 is good enough. Unlike competing phones, Micromax is shipping the In 1B with an almost stock build of Android 10. This means that there is no bloatware installed in the device, and it helps the phone run smoother in daily use. Talking about daily use, the large 5000 mAh battery ensures that the phone won't die out on you during a day of heavy use. However, the included 10-watt charger takes a long time to top up the battery, and you will want to charge the phone overnight. Now let's talk camera performance. The phone ships with a 13MP primary camera and a 2MP depth sensor. while over at the front is an 8MP camera. The camera performance was average, however low light performance is nothing special. All in all, the Micromax In 1B stands out for its processor as well as the use of a near stock Android build. The phone is priced starting at 6,999 rupees in India. Next we have the Micromax In Note 1. The Note 1 is Micromax going up against Xiaomi's popular Redmi Note series of phones. It differentiates itself through a distinctive design and the use of a clean Android build. But is that enough? Let's find out. The Micromax In Note 1 is a big phone, packing a large 6.6-inch display with a camera cutout towards the top. The display looks nicely saturated and makes media content pop. However, using the phone in one hand is nearly impossible. The construction here is all plastic and Micromax has gone for a glossy finish, which is a fingerprint magnet. The X finish at the back of the phone looks striking, but it might not appeal to anyone who likes a more subdued design. The phone includes a fingerprint reader that is very well positioned and makes unlocking the phone a breeze. Over at the bottom is a USB-C port as well as a headphone jack. Meanwhile, the left side of the phone houses a dedicated Google Assistant key for quick access to Google's virtual assistant. The Micromax In Note 1 runs on a MediaTek Helio G85 processor paired with 4GB of RAM and 128GB of storage. The octa-core chipset with a peak clock speed of 2 GHz makes short work of the latest games. The MediaTek Hyper Engine further helps in enhancing the gaming experience by ensuring better sustained performance. The clean build of Android 10 further helps in keeping the phone nice and speedy. The lack of any bloatware or added apps is a great differentiator against the competition. Like most other phones in the category, the Micromax In Note 1 also includes a 5000 mAh battery which lasted us a full day of phone calls, texting, social media and more. And when it's time to charge, the included 18-watt charger is reasonably fast at topping up the phone. Finally, let's talk about cameras. The Micromax In Note 1 includes a 48MP primary camera paired with a 5MP ultra-wide sensor, a 2MP macro camera and a 2MP depth sensor. Over at the front is a 16MP shooter. Photos from the primary are good, especially in well-lit conditions. The phone does a good job at handling white balance, displays low noise and captures a decent amount of detail as well. However, the ultra-wide camera's resolution is a bit too low to be very useful. Finally, the macro camera was average at best. Overall, the Micromax In Note 1 is a strong first step by the company to make a comeback in the mid-range segment. Price starting 10,999 rupees, it doesn't necessarily beat the competition, but it does present itself as a high-quality alternative.
Let's move on now to another very interesting story, a story that I'm absolutely and totally fascinated by. The entire idea of buying a new smartphone seems simple, but it's actually a pretty complicated process. Some of us take a decision instantly, while others take a long time and compare things. But have you ever thought about what is it that leads you to take that big decision? Think about it deeply for a moment. Brand, budget, processor, camera, looks, screen. Well, yes, all of those important. But one of the biggest criteria that we all look into are the two big specifications that everyone compares: the RAM and the storage. In fact, this is what tilts many decisions one way or the other, and for very good reason. The RAM and storage within can be actually make or break for a phone. Its performance, number of apps you use, number of pictures and videos you take. In fact, everything you do daily with your phone depends predominantly around these two. Yet when we think of these two, we just think of numbers: 4GB, 6GB, 128GB, just a specification to tick mark and move on. None of us really go deeper into what RAM is, what kinds are there, who makes it, how do they differ, how they work and affect your phone's performance. The same holds true for storage as well. The important point to remember is that all RAM and storage is not equal. Today is the day we open up this magical part of our phones and reveal all. Now we know about brands that make smartphones, but hardly any of us know about the company that makes these all-important components inside the phones. Micron is one of the world's leading companies that makes the RAM and internal storage that we find in most phones. In fact, Micron leads with R&D and innovation in this field. Before we go deeper into Micron's role in this field, let's understand these components better. With each iteration of the RAM, like LPDDR4 or LPDDR5, it gets faster, and that means the phone performance actually becomes faster. For example, a 108 megapixel camera on a phone is able to shoot photos in the highest possible resolution and process these photos in real time because of the quality and efficiency of the RAM in play. Similarly, with faster RAM, storage capacity has also increased. This is due to the rising demand for higher storage devices, as our apps and photos now consume more space than ever before. These days, phones come with UFS 3.0 or UFS 3.1 storage. This means that the read-write speed of the phone storage are faster than the previous generations. So what should you look for when buying a new phone today? Don't just look at the RAM and storage as numbers. Dive a little deeper into it. Here's a little checklist for you. For a faster, more seamless experience, it's best to go with the latest version of RAM and internal storage. This means you should look for a phone having LPDDR5 memory for RAM and UFS 3.1 standard for the storage capacity. This gives you a fast, efficient phone that will also be future-proof. Now Micron has these solutions as they make high-performance RAM and high-capacity storage fast for all phones. So we decided to sit down and have a word with Micron and understand the true importance of what they do to make our smartphones perform above and beyond our expectations. Thank you, Raj, for joining us. Great to have you out here. Of course, I think we're in different time zones between you and I. So good to have you here, whatever the time zone is right now.
Thank you so much for having me on this show, Rajiv. It's really my pleasure to talk to you.
All right, so Raj, let's start off with trying to find out a little bit about what is RAM and storage, because, we just did a very interesting story on it. But I think everybody wants to know, RAM and storage, how does it make a big difference to the phone?
Now, memory is what people call volatile. That means when you take the power off the phone, you power on the phone for the first time, whatever was stored in there goes away. So it's volatile. Storage is not volatile. So when you take a picture or you download a video, it stays there. So storage actually is something where people used to store their personal information, their pictures, their videos. Now memory is what is required for the processor to store the intermediate information to give you the great experience.
So right now, Raj, we are in the world of LPDDR5, but it didn't happen overnight. Can you trace back and tell us the last 5 or 10 years, how we've evolved and reached where we are right now?
As the processors got faster, as the display resolution gets bigger, as more and more applications are loaded onto the phone, your performance of the phone and your user experience of the phone is really, really determined by how much memory you have, which is actually what is size of the memory. That is your 6 gig, 8 gig, and so on. And how fast is the memory? The speed at which you can access the memory. Because if you access the memory not fast enough from the processor, the phone looks slow. So that is called the bandwidth. Now LPDDR3, LPDDR4, LPDDR5, LP stands for low power, because this is a DDR memory that's been optimized for phones, because power is very important. They're all evolutions of the memory which higher and higher speed. So LPDDR5 that we talked about now, which Micron has pioneered, and it's the first one in the market, with LPDDR5, is one of the fastest memories you can get.
Okay, now we've understood lots of things to do with RAM, but Raj, tell us a little bit about storage, because at the end of the day today we have phones where you can't add storage, it's the storage that it comes built in with, so it's become even more important.
Certainly, storage is another very, very important part of the phone experience. Storage is where all your pictures are stored, all your videos are stored, all the applications that you download to your phone are actually stored. If you don't have enough storage, you won't be able to download enough applications. After a certain point, it's going to say you don't have enough storage for your pictures. Now, another thing that has happened over the last few years is people are downloading not just pictures, but they're downloading and streaming a lot of video. Like if you look at things like Netflix or Prime Video or so many other streaming services, they allow you to download now for a subscription a bunch of shows and store them securely on your phone, so you can watch them even when you don't have a high-speed connection. Mm-hmm. For you to be able to do that, you need a lot of storage, because if you don't have enough storage, you cannot store enough video. The speed of storage also matters. Now, particularly what happens is, let's say you go to 4G and 5G, you're now downloading video at a very high speed. Now you can't process it and display it fast enough, so it has to be stored into the storage at a very high speed. In storage, we have standards called UFS, which stands for Universal File System. There's UFS 2.1, UFS 3, now there's UFS 4 coming.
Okay, Raj, the big important question now is what should a person look for when they're buying a phone? How do they evaluate the RAM and the storage?
So I think right now most people are saying that when you go from 4G to 5G, pretty much the average densities of memory that's needed in the phone is going to double. So before you bought a 4 gigabyte phone, now you're going to buy an 8 gigabyte phone with 5G. You bought a 64 gigabyte storage, now you need to buy a 128 or 256 gigabyte storage.
Let's take a quick break right now on the show. When we come back, lots more happening. Now let's move on to a brand new phone from Samsung. This is the F41, yes. Another phone from Samsung, another series, F series from Samsung. Now I don't really know why, because there's nothing that really distinguishes this phone from, maybe the M series. In fact, I think the M31 and this is pretty much a replica of each other. Now why Samsung would do that is something, that I haven't understood. The price point, what game is it? Is it a spec game? Is it a differentiator game? Do they just want to fill up the aisles with more and more phones? But we'll tell you a little bit about this phone.
Samsung seems to have cracked the formula for delivering phones at all price points and keeping customers happy. With the launch of the Galaxy F41, the Korean giant has brought to life its latest F series of devices. Here are our first impressions of the phone. With a big 6.4-inch Super AMOLED LED screen, the Galaxy F41 looks good. It has tiny bezels and an Infinity U display that houses the front camera. Viewing angles are great and the content looks vibrant and punchy on this display. An area where the F41 shines is the battery. The phone has a big 6000 mAh battery. With a 60Hz screen and a frugal processor in the Exynos 9611, the F41 is a battery beast. There is a 15-watt fast charger in the box. Here's what is missing in the phone though. The phone only has an Exynos 9611 chip, which is a mid-range chipset at best, but still manages to look good while doing everyday tasks. However, if gaming is on your mind, you should look elsewhere. The phone handles light games well, but heavy gaming will be a problem for the phone. Another thing to note is the camera performance. There is a triple camera setup on the F41. The 64MP main sensor clicks great photos, but there are some better alternatives in the market even in this price range. The 8MP ultra-wide sensor is disappointing and shots don't look too good. The 5MP depth sensor is decent. However, the 32MP front camera churns out some good-looking selfies. Running on Android 10 out of the box, the F41 is skinned with One UI. It comes in 64GB and 128GB storage variants, with RAM capped at 6GB in both. Our verdict? There is a certain checklist of features that a phone must have in order to deliver perfect value, and Samsung seems to be mastering the art of it. For its price of 15,499 rupees, the Galaxy F41 ticks a lot of the right boxes while making a few compromises along the way to delivering value for money.
That then is the Cell Guru show, but we've got a very, very exciting show coming up, including the brand new Vivo V20 Pro. Join me next week.